Welcome to the first Build Before Breakfast series, and this one will be specifically for Lens and Leash. So my goal and my hope is to build a bunch of different Build Before Breakfast series on different projects that I'm working on and building out. So hopefully we'll be able to pretty much follow step by step as I build out each of these projects. Some will be very short and very quick, and maybe just one video at a time. And then others will be multiple videos as I build out as they're much larger projects. But the whole point is to show what all of these new AI tools are truly capable of and what you can build. So you can either follow along and build something, similar on your own end or an idea, but using the principles and the thoughts and the different things that I'm using to also build out projects that you've been wanting to build or solutions to different problems that you have either in your workplace, in your company, as a freelancer, wherever it is at that site. So hopefully this is a fun series that you'll be able to walk through and kind of see the progression of the project. And also one of the big things is I'd love to get feedback. So if you have different ideas for this project, I'll go through the comments and take the different ideas and the ones that really stand out, potentially implement them in this project to hopefully make this almost like a group collaboration. And then I'll also show you all the tools that I'm using to actually build these out. Yes, most of these are paid tools, and most of them actually come through a paid school group that I'm in that I will link down below. Ken Kai that has built out some amazing tools. I know there's other tools like Replit and Lovable, and there's quite a few. Even Google's come out with their own free version with AI Studio that you can build a lot. But I really like Claude Code. In using the Claude Code SDK that Ken Kai has kind of built out his own kind of templatized version on top of it called Agent Girl that has worked really well as I also use Cursor in different points to actually do some of the development. So I'm going to be switching back and forth between different tools, different ways, and giving you my thought process and workflow as I go through each of these. So this video, I started a little late on the video because I've done a few of these steps. So I'm actually going to walk you through exactly what I've done so far and take you through step by step everything that I've done so far, which isn't much. I've only put in maybe 2 to 3 hours into this project so far, but I'll walk you through so you'll just be able to kind of see the step and then already the product where it's currently at in its current form. And then we can just dive in. And then, of course, if you have questions, leave them down in the comments so you can really go through each process. So I can hopefully help you through each step of the process. So if you get stuck somewhere, then I can kind of walk you through what I did to keep moving forward. All right, so let's dive in. So this is for Lens and Leash, which I created as something a little bit different at the beginning. And I started this about 10 years ago, maybe even a little bit longer if I'm remembering on that end of it. But what it was originally is we would partner up with different animal shelters and different photographers, hence the name Lens and Leash, to go into animal shelters, take professional photography of all the animals that were available for adoption to try to get them as much exposure. Just the photos are critical to bring people in to actually view the animals, to take them out for walks, to adopt them and different things like that. So we thought we would partner up with photographers, and we did. We partnered with many amazing photographers and animal shelters and different nonprofits. They would go in, do these amazing photo shoots, and we saw some amazing results with it. It was pretty hard to scale back in the time as we were doing kind of everything pro bono and just donating our time on that end of it. But I always had a bigger idea of being able to build out more of a social network that would allow you to all the animal lovers across the country to connect with the animal shelters, to be able to put in if they're open to volunteering or fostering, and then also having kind of a marketplace for the pet-friendly restaurants, hotels, businesses, along with individual services like dog walking. And I know there's different apps, each for those specifically, but I thought it would be, a idea to be able to put all those in together, almost like a Facebook, a social network that has all of these different elements. So it's kind of a one-stop shop to be able to help the animals help the shelters and all the nonprofits that are doing so much across the country for these shelters, and then all the animal lovers out there to be able to kind of combine, to be able to create communities specifically. If there's lost animals, I see them on Facebook all the time. If there's a lost pet anywhere, there's different communities that will help out. But to be able to build specific features to truly help all these communities out in multiple different ways. So that was the idea behind this. And so now with AI tools, with where they're at, I think we're in a place that I can build all of this myself. One of the main things that held me back in the previous time was, making sure that it was worth it, that people would truly use it and get value out of it. But it was cost prohibitive to find a development team to build something like this in the past. And now, just by myself being a complete non-coder, I can actually go through and build this myself, which I may get stuck in a couple times. There may be some more difficult things that I'll have to figure out along the way. So hopefully that's why this series will show you the barriers that I run into and potential solutions that I find as I build out this project as well. So hopefully you can even join, once I get it live, you'll be able to join Lens and Leash and go through it. You can see the current website that I have here, which was really just a blog. So you can actually see right here, this was one of the photo shoots that we did in the past. This was the photographer that we worked with. This was in Jackson Hole, which was my hometown. And then all the animals during this photo shoot. So this was the original concept behind it, to be able to get as much exposure. We did one in Maui. We did a couple of these. And as you can see, these were all 7 years ago. So it's really kind of sat on the back burner for the last 7 years of going through this. So we had gotten it started, but it was just a little difficult to truly make it sustainable. But now I think we're in a place where we can fully make this sustainable and go through it. But you can kind of see the current, which is just a WordPress blog here, and go through it now in its current phase. And then over time, once I push the new social network live, then you'll see it switch to the new website. So you can see this is almost from scratch. Like I said, I have probably 2 hours. And I'll show you exactly, I was just setting out the foundation of it, which I'm already much further along than I even thought, building the foundation. But let's go ahead and, I'll stop rambling now and walk you through the step-by-step process that I did to truly get this off the ground. And welcome to the Build Before Breakfast series. All right, so this started with Agent Girl, which is a Claude Code SDK kind of wrapper that's built on top of the SDK. It's not actually a wrapper. There's a ton of extra functionality that Ken Kai has built into this. Once again, if you want any of these tools, look down it's actually in Ken Kai's school group that you'll be able to gain access to all of those. And of course, I can help out any way that I can to walk you through how to get those set up. But Ken does an amazing job with not only building the tools, but making it super easy to get set up with all of these tools. So you would just be running this locally on your computer. And pretty much what I did here or what he's built into it. So when you create a new chat, you can do this build feature. So right here, what this build feature is a Next.js app. So you can see this is really good for SaaS products, for dashboards, or websites that need database or user accounts. Of course, as a social network, we're going to need a database with user accounts and different APIs, things like that. And it even says examples, TikTok, Twitch, different things like that. So what I did was selected that, and then I wanted all of these. So it's pretty easy. You pretty much go through, you select all of these, you click next, you give it a name. I left everything as the recommended, and it starts. So when you clicked Lens and Leash for video, you click next here. It just confirms what it's going to build. It gives you the next steps, and then you click start building. I don't need to do that because it was already done, but you would click that and it literally starts it. So what you'll see here is when I built this, let's go to the very top again. So see, it puts it in as a prompt and it starts building out. So it goes through, it gives you exactly what it's doing. It creates the different sub agents to start building it, everything like that. After I did that, I went through here, this little button down here that looks like the art easel. You click that, that's the configuration style and design system. So I went through and I think I did this DM Sands, and then I did the Arctic Frost, and then you just like different buttons, fade-ins, loading, all the different little elements for the website, and it uses shadcn as well to build these out, the toggle slides. So you apply configuration once you've already done that, and then it updates it. So pretty much at that point, you have an entire foundation set that is built and ready to go. So it's using all of the latest different softwares, latest elements of Node.js, all of it. It pretty much gives you a foundation to start building an entire project out where you really don't have to think about anything. It's all done for you here. So it pretty much created everything out here. It gives you the breakdown of everything. And then after it gives you the foundation, I gave it the information. I want this to be a social networking site for animal lovers. I want to be able to have a news feed. I want to be able to have an adopt feature to be able to see all of the animals. And this is using the PetFinder API. So I did have to register for a PetFinder API key, which is free. So I have the PetFinder API key. And then I went through and said, this is how it needs to be used. And the PetFinder API also has documentation. I loaded up the documentation here and said, here's the URL for all the documentation. Read through it, understand it here. And then it gives you pretty much the foundation or what it's going to do to build out everything. So it gives you all of the information there, and it just does it on its own. I mean, not completely on its own. It's using, Claude code, and to be able to go through and build all of this out, it goes through. I did have to create a Supabase account. So Supabase, I just used the free account. You sign up for a Supabase account and start a project for it. So I started a Lens and Leash project and put in the credentials. It asks you to literally put in, so it creates the environment variables to be able to build it out. So it needs the database URL from Supabase, the public URL, the anonymous key, the service role key, and then the PetFinder API key and secret. So it told me everything that I needed to get and how to get it here. So I got all of that on that side of it and put it into the environment variable file. Went through that process. So I gave it all of that information there. And then down here, let's see. So it migrated. So it actually did all the Supabase migration. It built all of the tables out and the database schema, which is just meaning exactly, what are the rows that are needed? What are all the columns that are needed for it? So it actually works properly. So it creates everything that needs to be on that side of it. And then it says, okay, what else do you want to build on that side of it? So I told it, okay, yeah, let's now start building out the pet profiles, the social feed, the API. So all I had to do was prompt it, say, yes, please continue to phase 4. Please continue on to phase 5. And it went through and built everything out for me. So I didn't have to prompt it much here. So you can see it pretty much told me exactly which phases it was going to work on. Yep, let's continue to phase 5. That was my entire prompting after I told it exactly what I wanted it to build, is let's just go through this phase by phase and build this out so it doesn't get confused. It creates it with the correct foundation. We just had to get to the point where I think it just finished up proceeding to phase 7. It did all of its work there. And then let's do phase 8. And if that's the last phase, I believe, that was the final phase. Pretty much what I took from there then is I moved it over into Cursor. So let's switch over to Cursor now. Okay, so now we're in Cursor. And so the difference between Cursor and the Claude Code SDK, which is named Agent Girl with how Ken built that out, kind of the top level view of the difference, where think of the Claude Code SDK as kind of more of just a normal chat, but it has a ton of functionality where it can build out a ton of different agents, and it has more of a visual workflow comparatively to Cursor, where now you're actually looking at all of the files that it actually created for this project. So in Agent Girl, it's not as easy to just quickly look at the entire project itself. And of course, if you're not a developer, a lot of this won't actually make sense. So I'm not going to go into each of these files, but I'll give a quick overview. So these .md files are pretty much being put into the prompts every time to say, okay, when you're building something, use this color system. So use this Claude.md file to have the understanding of what the project is about, the different phases of it, and the different features that are in it. And then you actually have these like .ts files and different JSON files that are the actual code that's running. And I'm the worst person to actually explain how each of these works because I'm not actually a developer. I'm a vibe coder. So I have an understanding of kind of what things are, but I wouldn't be able to go in and actually edit or do anything here. So anytime I have a question, I just ask Claude Code to say, what is this file? What is it doing? Please explain it to me like I'm a 3-year-old so I can kind of understand the concept. So that's what I do is I just ask it, what is this mcp.json file? Well, that's for MCP server. So you can connect up with other, like with Supabase. I use a Supabase MPC server. So it creates all the tables much easier and it understands. And if I have any security issues, it's able to figure them out and solve a lot of those. What are some of these .ts files? Well, some of these files are for actual scripts that are running. So this one, makes this API call to the PetFinder API. So it actually brings in the photos and everything on that side of it. So use AI as your friend and teacher to teach you what all of these things are doing, how they're working together, and kind of it gives you an ability to learn while you're building as well. So use this tool that's available to you to kind of like maximize or leverage it to its greatest ability. So why I move it into Cursor is, at least just for me, it's a little bit easier. I don't use actual like Cursor's functionality with their agents. I just use Claude Code, the CLI within Cursor. So just within a terminal. So everything is within a terminal. So once again, if you don't know what that means, if you're not a developer, there's other videos, and I can't recommend Ken Kai's school group highly enough because he walks you through what is the terminal, how to use the terminal. Of course, there's a ton of YouTube videos out there as well, but he has all the videos specifically on his build outs and the best way to use it, and how to use git commits, which is pretty much saving all of your code so you don't lose it, and then committing it to GitHub so it's saved in the cloud, so you can not only, if something breaks, you can go back to a previous version, things like that. So there's a ton in here, but I'm going to try to just show you kind of the top level for now. And if there's a lot of questions or a lot of comments asking me to really explain a specific thing, then I'll dive into that deeper. But what I did here is I'm starting up the local dev server. So what that allows me to do is actually view what Agent Girl fully built out. So that's why I use it within the terminal to really start pinpointing and seeing and going through piece by piece of what's been built out, what works, what doesn't work, and then I'm able to see it. So let's actually hop in and look at what Agent Girl built out. And now you're pretty much up to speed because that was the entire foundation that I built out here. And so now you can actually see where we're at. Okay, so now you can actually see what has been built so far. So there was a few things that I did in Cursor, like adding in the logo, and there was a little bit of bug fixing with the actual PetFinder API, which it had actually caused the issue. So it had the wrong key to be able to pull it in, but so you can see it has a feed, kind of like a news feed. And yes, is it very basic? Absolutely. We'll have to build out, what do we want on the left side? What do we want on the right side? Here's the adopt feature. I set it to the Phoenix area to show all of the new animals that are coming up for adoption, and you can set the preferences. So these were those 8 phases that it built through, build and adoption preferences, build and adopt tab, and this is what it does. So, what's the status? Are they adoptable now? What type of animal? Is it dog, cat, or, PetFinder has quite a bit of different animal types. What's the size, gender, age, the coat? You can see that it's actually missing the breed. So we need to add in the breed. So that's one thing that is definitely a filter that we want to be able to filter by: the personality and behavior, the medical and special needs, and then if they have photos with it, and then the location there. So the main one that we're missing now is by breed. So that's one thing that was missed. And then it has a My Pets feature. So adding in your own pets, and I'm not sure exactly how this will be used yet. And then the basics of an Explore tab. So this is going to be like the marketplace and the different shops and hotels and different services in your area that you'll be able to find. And then a notifications tab, which I haven't built anything out there yet, but that's what it's actually built. So in 2 hours of going through the process of having Claude Girl go through, or Agent Girl go through, and I told it what I wanted, it built this entire foundation for us to now start and go through piece by piece. So now at this point, we'll actually go into Cursor using Claude Code, the CLI, in the terminal and go through and say, okay, now we need this. You can actually stay in Agent Girl and just tell it to do each of those specific things as well. I think that it's just up to your preference. Do you like seeing the files and going through each of the new files that are created, or having it more be kind of like a chat GPT where you're just staying in the chat module and telling it what to do piece by piece and then going through? So it's really your preference, and Ken, I'm sure has a better workflow on that side of it if he recommends staying in Agent Girl in the Claude Code SDK or in Cursor in the terminal. But this is kind of the way that I've done it. I build the foundation in Agent Girl, and then I move it over into Cursor for the Claude Code SDK to then work on the individual features. If there are any bugs, going through, taking screenshots of the bugs and things like that. But I think this is probably the perfect place to stop to show you exactly what's already been built out and how quickly it was to get to this point. So this is part 1 of the Build Before Breakfast series. We're about 2.5 hours, of course, not taking into account actually recording this video, but actual build time. So maybe I'll actually start putting on a timer as I'm building, just to show, the amount of time that's going into each of these projects as well. But hopefully this is going to be a long-term fun series on this one. I have a ton of features that I want to build into it, but I'll hopefully be releasing part 2 of this very shortly, and hope you keep following this series till the end.